Salam everyone. We'll continue with whatever we were talking about before the tea break. About this importance of acknowledging that whatever work we do in Swami's name, in whatever way we contribute in Swami's work, this acknowledgement that he doesn't need it, there is nothing that I can give him, but in all this, the only person who stands to gain is myself. Generally in life, every work that we take up should have some purpose, right? Either I should gain something from it, or it should give me a certain mental disposition, or if nothing, it should entertain me. Right? Something, some purpose for the work that we do. And invariably, if I could define it, the work that we do should contribute in some way to my state of happiness. If it doesn't make me happy, then I'm not going to spend my time doing it. If not today, at least tomorrow it should make me happy. If not tomorrow, at some time, it should contribute to my happiness. It was suggested that I mention something about the Bhagavad Gita, and pretty much what we are talking about is straight from the Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna has this dilemma, a very interesting situation he is thrown into when he realizes that he is going to participate in a war. If he wins the war, it is going to be at the cost of many dear ones. If he loses the war, it's a loss, which is not something that we want. So he is put in a place where he suddenly realizes whatever be his action, what is going to come out of it is sorrow. So now he asks, is it necessary for me to act? Right? That is the source of his dilemma. When whatever I may do, whether I win or I lose, I am going to be sad at the end of it. Why should I act at all? And the best thing for me to do is run away from here. Avoid the action itself completely. And the entire discourse that Krishna gives him is to tell him that unfortunately not acting is also karma. Right? That is the most interesting insight that Krishna gives. That not acting can also be considered as activity when we are looking at it from the point of view of karma. Let us say I'm walking on the road and I see someone who is hungry. If I feed that person, it becomes good karma. If I don't feed that person and I am preoccupied with something and I move on, it's not necessarily bad karma. I have missed out an opportunity to do good karma. Right? I think that is quite clear. But if I have an elderly parent at home, not feeding that person also becomes bad karma. Why? Because in that situation, to take care of that person is expected of me. And that is how Dharma is defined. What you are due to do in the situation you are placed. If I am a teacher, I am due to teach the students in front of me. If I am a student, I due to pay attention to the class I am sitting in. If I am a mother, if I am a father, I am due to take care of my children. And what you are due to do is referred to as duty. As simple as that. And when the karma that you're avoiding comes under this definition of duty, not doing it becomes bad karma. And that is precisely what Krishna tells Arjuna, that by avoiding action, don't think it is akarma. By not doing action also, you are doing bad karma. And what is the source of all of this confusion that is there in Arjuna's mind? Arjuna is a warrior. He has fought many battles. He has killed many people. He has defeated many foes. But he tells Krishna, Drishtva Swajanam Krishna. He says, oh Krishna, I am seeing my people in front of me. That is the whole problem. When he sees the people before him as being mine, they belong to me, then the idea of what is right and wrong gets clouded in his mind. And what is the solution Krishna gives? Swami would often define this. The essence of the Bhagavad Gita is, take the first word, take the last word. It starts with Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre. So take Dharma. It ends with Matir Mama. So Swami says, take Mama. When you put the two together, it becomes Mama Dharma. So to do your duty is the solution to this confusion. Now what is that Dharma? Interestingly, the Dharma is again defined by someone is my mother, someone is my father, someone is my wife, someone is my husband. So the problem is mineness. The solution is also mineness. And Swami would say, when you run a thorn, you take another thorn to remove this thorn, and then you discard both thorns. To remove this confusion of mineness, you use the concept of Mama Dharma, which is the definition of what I am due to do in that situation, as the thorn that I use to remove this thorn of mineness. Ahankara and Mamakara is removed by constantly doing your duty. But then Krishna adds, it is not merely about doing your duty. The duty has to be done in a certain way. And for that, he says, Nimitta matram bhavasavya sachi. Be a mere instrument. And Swami explains this. When you say nimitta, there are two kinds of causes, karanas. Swami says nimitta karana and upadana karana. Right? These are the two phrases that you find in the scriptures. Upadana karana is the original source. And Swami has this beautiful way of explaining these things with simple analogies. Swami says, one day you get a letter. There is good news in the letter. Right? Let's say you've got a job that you've been applying for. The good news is given by the person who has sent the letter. So the person who has sent the letter is the upadana karana, the original reason. But the nimitta karana is the postman who has delivered the letter. He is not the source of the good news. But my immediate source is the postman. Though the source is somewhere else, the one who is delivering it to me is different. But nevertheless, what do? If it's a very good news, we will hug the postman and thank him. Of course, nowadays I don't think we have that opportunity. I'm telling about when Swami gave that example, where the telegrams used to be delivered. If it's a good news of some child being born, the postman will be fed with sweets. So Swami would say that just like how the postman is merely a nimitta karana, if you go about doing your duty as merely a nimitta, an instrument, then you will be performing the duty that you're supposed to do, not being attached to the people to whom you're performing the duty, and you will be moving forward. The best example you can think of that is just picturize yourself walking from here to there. This walking involves two actions that we do simultaneously. One, we put our foot firmly down. And the second action, we lift the foot. If any one of this you don't do properly, you cannot walk. Right? If you don't put your foot firmly, you're going to fall. If you put your foot too firmly and you're not willing to take it out, you're not going to move forward. So for this simple act of moving from one point to the other, you have to do both these. That is, putting your foot firmly and letting go of your foot from the ground. Swami says, similarly, when we have to progress in this life, what we do, we have to do with absolute involvement, and the very next moment, we should be ready to let go. Just like how we walk, one step is put firmly, the other step is taken away. And for this, Swami says, this attitude that I am merely a nimitta, I am merely an instrument. Can we look at our children and say, Swami is taking care of you through me? Can we look at our parents and say, Swami is taking care of you, but through me? I am not taking care of you. I am not the one fostering you. I am not the one providing for you. It is Swami who provides. I am merely that postman. But this attitude is not very easy to come by, right? Because if it was easy, we wouldn't have Krishna delivering the Gita. We wouldn't have the Gita being relevant to us even after so many years, isn't it? But if this attitude can be developed, Swami says, then life will become a breeze. In one of the Upanishads, there is that statement, Ishavasya Upanishad, Tena tyaktena bhunjitaha, it says, enjoy all the pleasures of the world with an attitude of sacrifice. As long as you're not getting attached to anything, you can enjoy anything. But that's the trick, right? That's impossible, and it's almost not possible for us right now. Because the moment we find something enjoyable, we get attached to it. The moment we find something not enjoyable, we get attached to the idea of avoiding it. So in both ways, we get trapped in attachment. So if there is a place where we can learn this idea or this concept of being a nimitta and slowly transplant that idea into every activity that we do in life, then we might make that progress. And that is why it becomes so very important to give yourself for Swami's work after, as we saw in the first session, acknowledging that anyway he is going to do everything. I am merely an instrument in that larger scheme of things. Just like how I stand here and speak, like the postman who gets sweets, I get appreciation from you. But I should not get carried away by the thought that here I am the upadana karana, right? I am delivering Swami's message. It is he who delivers, I am the postman. And if I can perfect that attitude in this role, which is actually easy for me, because Swami repeatedly shows that he is the doer. Many years ago, when we were doing a program on the radio, me and my colleague used to do the program called Afternoon Satsang. So we would take up some topic which would be of interest to us, hoping that it would be of interest to the listeners also. And then we will discuss that on a live program. We would have a live conversation. So we had decided to do a discussion on a certain topic. 10 minutes before we went in for the live program, we asked ourselves, so how are we going to start the discussion? Right? Every discussion we think of, if there's some program in the mandir, we will make a reference to that and start. Or if it is a festival that has happened, we would start by greeting the listeners for the festival. So we just were thinking, how do we start this discussion? So we thought of a question: why does bad happen to good people? Right? We thought we will start with this question. We'll discuss for maybe 5 to 6 minutes, and then we will go into the topic that we thought we were going to discuss that day. 5 minutes before we go in for a 1.5 hour live show. We go in for the live program, we start the discussion on this topic, and we end up discussing it for 1.5 hours. What we thought we were going to talk only for 5 minutes. Whatever thoughts we were thinking that I felt like sharing, I was sharing. My colleague was sharing what he felt like. And then it became a real conversation. And at the end of it, we even mentioned it on the radio that we have no idea why we spoke on this topic today, because this was not meant to be the topic. And we concluded the program, and I think we took up the topic which was meant to be the next week. A few weeks later, we get an email from a listener from Japan. So this devotee always involves herself in seva wherever she gets an opportunity. But she was going through pregnancy, and so she could not participate in seva. So she told herself, the only seva I am going to do is, whatever programs I listen on Radio Sai, I am going to forward it to people. So she said, this is the seva I am going to do. So she was happy doing that, though admitted in the hospital, she was doing that. And she was writing this email to us saying that this is what I am doing. I sent your last satsang to a friend whom I know. It turned out that this person, for some petty crime, got arrested and was in a prison. And imagine this lady sitting somewhere in some corner in Japan. She replies to this lady saying, one full day, my mind was bogged by this thought. Why does bad happen to good people? And then you send me this link. And when we read that email, now we understand why Swami made us speak on that topic, gave us the thought to speak on it 5 minutes before we entered the recording floor, made us speak on it for 1.5 hours, because somewhere some devotee was sitting and thinking, why does bad happen to good people? And when such a thing is brought to our awareness, is it possible to stand and think that I am the one who is giving the message, or we are the one who are discussing Swami's message? So when we do Swami's work, I think repeatedly he will be giving us this understanding that the work is not happening because of us, it's happening in spite of us. If there is any obstacle to that work, I think it is only us. And in spite of us, Swami is able to do it. And that sense that I am merely that nimitta karana in the work that he is performing himself, if that attitude slowly starts percolating into our duties as a family person, duties that we perform in the workplace, then we are learning this art of, as Swami would say, the alchemy of making karma into karma yoga. Karma is that which binds, but karma yoga is that which releases. So this alchemy of converting karma into karma yoga will be learnt through this opportunity that Swami is giving us to do Swami's work. The person to benefit from it is us. When Swami was in Kodaikanal once, there was this student. In front of him, Swami came and Swami materialized vibhuti and gave it to one of the students there. Generally, when Swami materializes vibhuti, we all would have seen that sight of somebody will immediately go up and offer some handkerchief to Swami for him to wipe his hand. So Swami materializes vibhuti. One of the students gets up and offers a handkerchief to Swami. Swami wipes his hand, gives it back to him, and looks at this other student who is sitting beside him, and Swami asks him, "You don't have handkerchief to give Swami?" And this boy said, "No, Swami, I don't have." And Swami says, "Okay," and goes away. The next day again comes in front of the same boy, materializes vibhuti and gives it to someone. And then Swami again looks at him, "You don't have handkerchief?" And slowly it occurs to him that Swami is telling him, "Can't you have handkerchief?" So then this boy says, "No, Swami, I don't have." Then Swami says, "Okay." And Swami goes a few steps and turns back. And Swami says, "I will give you a handkerchief. You keep it with you. And when Swami asks, you can give." So he says, "Okay, Swami." So Swami goes inside to his room and brings a bunch of the handkerchiefs that he has for himself, gives it to the boy and says, "When I ask, you can give." So now this boy is prepared with one handkerchief. And he's thinking, tomorrow when Swami comes and materializes vibhuti, I'm going to even give the handkerchief. Swami comes the next day, stands in front of him, doesn't materialize vibhuti this time. Swami had that habit of wiping his mouth with his sleeve, right? In some of the darshan videos we would have seen. Swami just wipe his mouth with his sleeve. And whenever Swami would do that, one of the students will offer a handkerchief to Swami. So Swami comes in front of him and wipes his mouth like that. This boy is still sitting because he's waiting for vibhuti. And Swami looks at this boy and says, "Bad boy. Handkerchief deta hai, fir bhi nahi deta hai. Handkerchief diya, fir bhi nahi deta hai. I gave you a handkerchief, still you're not giving." And this boy is protesting in his mind, "Swami, but you didn't ask for it." Because Swami said, when Swami asks, you can give, right? So he's thinking in his mind, "But Swami, you didn't ask for it." Then he thinks about it and then he says, "Okay, maybe Swami was saying that when he indicates that he needs a handkerchief, you have to give him one." So he said, "Next day, I'm going to be ready." Again, Swami comes, stands in front of him, and in the most obvious of the gestures, Swami wipes his mouth. And this boy gets up and gives a handkerchief. And with a relief, Swami says, "Good boy." Right? Swami says, "Good boy." Then Swami wipes his mouth and gives him the handkerchief back. And this boy puts it in his pocket. When he puts it in his pocket, he finds it's heavier than a handkerchief should be. And when he sees in the folds of the handkerchief is a beautiful watch. And reflecting on this episode, he says, "See, Swami is love. We are so insensitive that we don't even know that we have to offer him service. He comes, he teaches us how to offer him service. He gives us the wherewithal to offer that service. He gives us the opportunity to offer that service. And finally, when this dull head realizes that this is how I should serve him, and when we serve, he rewards us for that service. So patiently, so lovingly, he is training us to do his work, because in that lies the secret to our redemption. This thought that I am merely an instrument of the Lord. And that is why all the stories that I was telling you was this constant reminder that I am a doctor, but he doesn't need me. I am a teacher, but he doesn't need me. I am a speaker, but he doesn't need me. There were days sometimes in Prasanthi Nilayam, in the mandir, when there would be nobody in the bhajan hall. There were times when Swami would be attending bhajans. There would be one person singing, one person playing the kanjira, and that's all there was. And one person offering arti. So the person who is playing kanjira has to go and ring the bell. This person will give arti. At one point, they were so understaffed that they did not have even somebody to go and ring the bell. So they were wondering, one person is giving arti, the person who is singing arti has to sing arti, but there's nobody to ring the bell. So he's like, should I ring the bell? Should I sing the arti? And Swami looks at him and Swami says, you sit. And then the bell starts ringing by itself. He does not need even a person to ring that bell. But the opportunity is being given so that through that opportunity, we can learn to be an instrument of the Lord. But what is it to be the instrument of the Lord, right? If we are doing seva in Swami's name, if we are going out and serving the needy in His name, how should that opportunity be approached? It was a time when Swami was sending the students for a gram seva, right? In one of the villages nearby, Swami was sending them for a gram seva. And Swami had made all the arrangements. The boys would go in a bus. And I think it was going over a period of time. So they were actually, I think, repairing one of the roads to that village or something like that, right? Swami comes up to the students one day in the mandir. And Swami says, tomorrow when you all go for gram seva, I will come with you. Swami says, I will come in the bus. Oh, those students were very excited. Wow, what a chance. Swami is going to travel with us in the bus. And then Swami says, when I come with you in the bus, I will show you how I do my miracles. Right? Imagine that. What a temptation Swami is holding. When I come in the bus with you, I will demonstrate to you, I will show you how I perform my miracles. The students were extremely excited. You can imagine, none of them would have slept that night, waiting for that opportunity the next day. So they all start, the car starts, the bus follows, and at one point Swami stops and gets into the bus. And then Swami is talking to all the students, and they're all wondering, when is that going to start? Has Swami forgotten it? Will Swami keep his word? And then suddenly Swami says, hey, I told you yesterday, I will show you how I do my miracles. How I materialize. So Swami told, see, there are 3 ways to produce an object. One way is the process of production. You take raw materials, you put it through a series of steps, and then you have a finished product, like how it happens in the factory. Swami said that is one way of producing. The second way of producing is, if you become a very spiritually evolved person, you can collect some siddhis, some powers, right? Some supernatural and superhuman powers. And with that, you can even materialize objects. Swami said that is not the best way, because it is like using up money, right? You save a lot of money, the more you use it, it depletes. Swami said, but mine is not like that. Mine is the third method. And what is that? Swami said, I think it happens. I think it happens. There is no gap between sankalpa and the manifestation. And then Swami said, shall I show you? And Swami put out his hand. And Swami said, now a thought is coming. And Swami is pointing to his forehead. Swami is saying, now a thought is coming. All the boys are here. I want to show them a diamond. Right? And so Swami is saying, he's holding his hand like that. A thought is coming. A thought is coming. And there it is. And there was a shining diamond in Swami's palm. Swami said, see, I thought and it happened. And Swami said, I'll show you again. So he held the diamond in his hand. And Swami is saying, now the thought is coming that I want to make this white diamond into a green diamond. And Swami said, the thought is coming, the thought is coming. And see, and it was green. And Swami said, this is how I materialize objects. I think and it happens. And Swami didn't stop with that. Swami said, even you can do this if you become like me. And what does that mean? Swami said, from the time this body touched this earth, not even one selfish thought has crossed this mind. And this power that you just saw is the manifestation of that purity. Swami didn't say this is a divine ability. Swami didn't say this is the powers of the avatar. Swami said, because there is not even a single selfish thought in this mind, not even one selfish thought has crossed this mind ever since this body was taken. And this is the power of that purity. So we may perform seva or service in any way. We may do it with the resources that we have. We may think that I am giving what I have earned. It is a good starting point, but the real seva that Swami wants us to do, as Swami said, is like this, where what we give is an expression of not merely what we have, but our purity. There was this student of Swami who had finished his education and he was waiting for an opportunity to serve Swami. So he was staying in Prasanthi Nilayam and he was hoping that Swami will give him a job. A young boy, very, very energetic. He wanted to do a lot of work. But Swami was not giving him the opportunity. So 1 month goes by, 2 months goes by, 3 months. Swami doesn't give him a work. Swami doesn't give him any activity. And he's sitting there and groups after groups are coming. Youth groups are coming and saying, Swami, we did this seva. Swami, we did this medical camp. We did that. So that is making him even more restless. Swami, I have so much energy, but you're not giving me an opportunity to serve. So this thought was always in his mind. One day he was walking back to his room very late in the night, maybe 11:30 in the night. He was walking through the Samadhi road in Prasanthi Nilayam. Right? For those of you who've been there, Swami's parents' Samadhi is there, right? So he was walking down that road where in the corner he found that all people had dumped garbage in the turning of that Samadhi road. And he thought to himself, Swami, in your name, people are doing seva in different parts of the world. But right here in Puttaparthi, right before your parents' Samadhi, there is so much filth and nobody has cleaned it. How unfortunate this is. So he thinks in his mind that tomorrow I am going to go inside the ashram and tell the maintenance people that they should come and clear this. He takes a few steps and then he says, why will they listen to me? If I go and tell them, why will they listen to what I am asking them to do? So then he thinks in his mind, no, I will not tell the maintenance people. I will go and tell my friends that come, let us clear this place as our offering to Swami. He takes a few more steps. Then he thinks, what if they don't listen to me? What if they dismiss me off? Then he thinks to himself, I will do it myself. It's okay, this is not big work, I can do it myself. So as he was walking back home, in his mind, he was actually listing out the tasks that have to be done. So he said, I have to clear that garbage. I have to dig a small, sewage sort of a thing, drainage sort of a thing. Then he said, I'm going to paint that wall and I'm going to put a notice there, please don't throw garbage here. Right? He had mentally made all the list of tasks that he has to do. 11:30 in the night. Next morning he is going for Nagar Sankirtan at around 5 o'clock. Coming through the same road, the garbage is cleared, the drainage is made, the wall is painted and the notice is there, don't throw garbage here. Exactly how he had planned in his mind. He was wondering, my God, how did this happen? I've been in Parthi for so long, such efficiency doesn't belong to us, right? He said, how did this happen? And he was so thrilled by this whole thing happening. He goes back after Nagar Sankirtan and breakfast. He goes and sits in the mandir. Swami comes around giving darshan and stops a few people before him. And Swami starts talking to one of the professors who is there. So this boy is not paying attention because Swami is talking to someone else. He's just sitting there and having Swami's darshan. All of a sudden, he hears Swami make this statement. Swami says, some boys think that Swami is making them simply sit. Right? Some boys think that Swami is making them simply sit and not giving them any work. The moment he heard that, he realized, oh, okay, this is for me. So he started paying attention. And then Swami said, see, they do not understand that I want them to work the way Swami works. They should do work the way Swami works. And how does Swami work? Swami repeated the same thing. I think and it happens. I think and it happens. So what Swami was essentially saying is, yes, take up activity in Swami's name. But the perfection of that Swami's work is not in execution, but in becoming Swami-like. In becoming that purity that he embodied. So when we are performing that work which he doesn't need us to do, when we are performing that work which he doesn't require to be done, are we able to purify ourselves in the process? The whole idea is that. And what does that purification essentially mean? It is nothing but giving up that sense of doership. Isn't it? Giving up that idea that I am doing this. I am giving this. One of the most beautiful stories I love narrating again and again is this episode that happened with a group of youth who would come back to Swami every now and then, and they would tell Swami, we have done this particular Gram Seva in this place. We did this medical camp. And whenever they would come and tell Swami that they've done some work, Swami will be very happy. Swami will be delighted. So they realized that if you want to make Swami happy, you should do more work. So they would go back, do more seva, come and tell Swami. And Swami will be happy. They were happy. So then they realized that, if you tell Swami, Swami is happy. If you show it in the form of pictures, so they started taking photos of the seva they were doing. And Swami was very happy to see that, oh, it's so nice. This person has happened, this you have done, that you've done. So the album which they would carry to Swami slowly started becoming thicker and thicker because they were doing more and more work, knowing that that is the best way to please Swami. So at one point they say that, they had this huge album, they put it on Swami's lap and they were showing all the activities they've done. And they were explaining to Swami, Swami, we did this dental camp in this place. We did this eye camp in this place. We did this personality development in this place. We did this, we did that, we did this, we did that. And Swami was patiently listening to all of that. And at the end of it, Swami asked, "Pa, so much you all have done." Swami said, "You all have done so much." And then Swami asked, "What has Swami done?" He said, "You all have done so much. What has Swami done?" And then the absurdity of what they were telling Swami occurred to them. They said, "Swami, we have not done anything. You have done all this. We were merely your instruments." Right? Then it occurred to them, see the beautiful sequence of the things. First, Swami, through his love, inspired them to do work. Through his love, inspired them to do more work. And slowly, Swami switches that understanding that you are not doing it, I am doing it through you. And thereafter, whenever they would write a report, they made it a point to write, Swami did a medical camp in such and such a place through us. Swami did a personality development through us. And when we are able to offer ourselves in that manner to Swami, what we give is much more than what we give. What we give is much more than what we actually give. What does that really mean? Some devotees of Swami were doing seva in a particular place. So they would go around and see, what are the different types of opportunities to serve that are available? What can we take up? What is the need of that particular area? So they found that in one particular part of the city, they had many of these daily wage laborers, construction laborers and other laborers who would congregate in that particular place. And early in the morning, they would leave for work in different construction sites. And most of these people come from very poor backgrounds. So they would typically eat one meal a day because they start so early and they work till late. So this group of devotees, they thought, why not we serve breakfast in that area? So all of these laborers gather in that particular part of the city. We will serve breakfast for them. So they can have their breakfast and go. And that will be a good seva to offer to Swami. So they do that. They start offering breakfast seva. So one of the devotees who was visiting the town joined that seva when they were doing it once. And as they were serving breakfast, they found one man coming and taking breakfast. He looked like he was having a good corporate job, very well dressed, neatly, wearing formal clothes, looked like a very decent man. And without any shame, he was coming and taking breakfast, which was meant for these laborers and daily wage workers. So this man who was serving, he felt a little uncomfortable. Why is he coming and taking this breakfast, which is meant for poor people? You should allow them to benefit. Why is he coming and having? So he couldn't contain himself. He asked one of the regular people who are doing that seva, why is this man coming and having here? He looks like a man who doesn't need this. So they smile and they tell him, why don't you go and ask him? Ask him, why does he come and take this breakfast? So they go and ask this person goes and asks that man, so please don't take me, otherwise I just want to know, you look like a person with a good job. Why are you coming and eating this breakfast? Then the man tells the story that I come from a good family, I had a good job, but due to a turn of events, I lost the job I had for no mistake of mine. And he said that made me very, very bitter. That this society is like so cruel. I've lost a job, I've not done anything wrong. And he had to feed a family. So in that anger and in that bitterness, he says, if the world is so unfair, why should I be fair? And he turns to a life of theft. He says, I will not take up a job anymore. He says, I'm going to go into crowded places and I'm going to steal from people. I'm going to steal pickpockets and I'm going to rob bags. And he takes to this life of theft. And it's been going well for him. He suddenly realizes that he's making more money, more job security is there in this. It's going well, but he had only one problem. And what was that problem? He had to report for this work quite early. So he's not able to have breakfast. So when he goes around, he comes across this particular group doing this breakfast seva. And he says, yeah, this will work out well for us. Every day I can come here, have this breakfast, and then go about my profession. So one day he comes as they are serving breakfast. He eats breakfast and goes to the nearby bus stand, hoping that someone will come from whom he can steal. And somebody comes and stands next to him. There's an elderly man and a young girl. He realizes it is the mother and the father and the daughter. And they've just come out of a bank. So he says, it's a good loot for me. And as he is standing behind them waiting for the opportune moment, he hears the father tell the daughter that, all my life's savings are there in this. And if I get you married, my responsibilities are over. And I've been planning for this day for so many years. The moment he hears this, he doesn't have the heart to steal from that old man. He says, my God, it's not the right thing to do. He's a poor man after all. I cannot take away his money. So he decides to move away from there, goes to another place, and there again he's trying to steal. He hears some conversation like this, doesn't have the heart to steal. Goes to another place, he's trying to steal from someone and he thinks, what if they also have some sob story like this? Doesn't have the heart to steal. And goes from one place to the other, not being able to steal like he's always stolen till now. Goes back home empty-handed that day. And then he starts thinking, what did I do differently that my mind has changed? What did I do that I have not done all these days that such thoughts are coming to my mind? And he remembers the only thing that he did was eat breakfast in that Swami's devotees performing seva. So he says, tomorrow I will go and check it out again. So again he goes, eats breakfast there, and spends the entire day not being able to steal from another person. He says slowly he changes his ways. He decides to take up a job which was paying him much lesser than his previous job and this profession that he had, taken up. But he says, no, I have to lead a good life. And that man says that this is my story. So even now, I continue to come and take breakfast from here so that my mind does not change. When a devotee, out of that purity of intention, out of that feeling that I am merely nimitta matram, he is the giver, I am the dispenser. With that attitude, when we go and do seva in Swami's name, we do not give breakfast, we do not give sandwiches, we do not give medicines. We are giving an opportunity for that person to move closer to the divinity within, isn't it? We are inspiring goodness in that person in a way we will not know. If we are lucky, we might come to know like a story like this. So to be perfect as an instrument does not lie in the perfection of the activity. To be perfect instruments does not lie in the perfection of execution, does not lie in perfection of planning, but it lies in the purity of the heart, isn't it? There was this young boy who comes from a very devout Christian family. As he goes through his education in a college, he gets drawn by the idea of communism, right, which was very rampant at that point in time when he was studying. And he gets involved in a lot of violence, which a small group of that people of that ideology start doing. Right? We have the Naxal movement in India. It's very, very rampant. Now, hopefully it is coming down. So this boy gets embroiled in that. Communism is a very, very pure thought. Swami would often say that in his discourses, that the idea of socialism and communism come from that pure thought that everyone should have enough. But then it gets contorted and gets distorted. So this boy, drawn by the idealism of that philosophy, gets embroiled into all of this, gets drawn into violence. And while performing an act of violence, of, I think, blowing up some place, he gets arrested. So here he was, a mere 17, 18-year-old boy, caught up in this life of crime and arrested and put in a prison. And after he's put in this solitary confinement, he starts thinking, what have I done with my life? Is this what it was all meant to be? What have I done? And he says that for months together, he has not slept. Because his mind is full of all of these doubts and questions and the anger against society, the anger against himself. And you can imagine the state of mind that young boy must have been, a 17-year-old boy. One day it so happens that devotees of that area, Swami's devotees of that area, decide to go to that prison to do bhajans and distribute prasadam. So this boy is in his solitary cell. First of all, he has not got sleep. On top of it, his mental state is like that. And he's wondering, who are these people who are coming and banging and singing and yelling at the top of their voice? Right? He gets so irritated with the whole thing. That sound of bhajan, somehow it irritates him because of the state of mind he's in. When you are very unhappy, seeing another person happy is the worst thing that can happen to you, right? You get really restless when you see a person's life going on smoothly. It's not in a bad way. It affects us. Like, why am I not able to find peace? Why is my life not being straight and easy? So it's almost like that. Imagine if you're in a state of mind like that and people are happily smiling and singing bhajans. It's like the last thing that boy wants to hear. So he's like really irritated. At the end of it, they come around giving prasadam and they're distributing oranges. So an old man comes and offers him an orange. And this boy is in the peak of his irritation. He takes the orange. As the old man turns, he throws it at him as hard as he can. And it hits him very hardly on his head. Right? He just took out all his frustration by hitting that man with that orange. And the next thing he sees is, this old man turns with such compassion in his eyes and smiles and walks away. And he said, nothing had affected me as much as that sympathy and compassion in that man's eyes and his smile. And I was wondering, why is he not angry? I have literally attacked him. He should be angry with me. He should have shouted back at me. But instead, he smiled. And he had love in his eyes. And he said that triggered a series of thoughts in his mind. And as I said, he was brought up in a devout Catholic family. He says for the first time in so many years, he actually sits down and prays. He prays the way his mother had taught him to pray. And the only thing he prays for is, he says, God, if you are there, if you are listening, he says, give me sleep. He says, I've not slept for months, give me sleep. And that night, he sleeps like a baby. And when he wakes up, his mind is all cleared and he knows exactly what he has to do with his life. He decides to transform his ways. He changes his behavior. Shortly thereafter, he is pardoned. His sentence is reduced. He is sent away. And slowly, he finds out that the group that had come was Swami's devotees. Then he slowly starts attending Swami's bhajans, Swami's samiti activities. Then eventually, he comes to Prasanthi Nilayam. And when he comes to Parthi, Swami calls him for an interview. By now, he has completely transformed his life. He has become a very, very good person. Swami calls him for an interview and Swami tells him in the interview, Swami says, Bangaru, why are you still carrying the guilt in your heart? Right? Because even though he had transformed, the violence that he had been party to made him so guilty that he was still thinking that I've hurt people, I've harmed people. So Swami touches his chest and Swami says, believe that your heart is pure. Take my word. From today, stop feeling guilty because you have a pure heart. And he says that was the final healing touch which he required. And thereafter, his life changed. He would go around speaking about this transformation that had happened in his life. And people would invite him to different places to inspire other youth. So this was going on for some time. And one day, an elderly gentleman comes up to him and he says, so you spoke really well. It was so wonderful to hear you. If you don't mind, can you come for a cup of coffee to my house? I would feel very honored if you come home as a guest. So this young boy says, why not? It would be my pleasure. So he goes to this old man's house and he's having a cup of coffee. And then the old man asks, do you recognize me? And he looks at him and he says, "No, sir, I don't." And the old man says, "You once threw an orange at me," he says. And then the boy gets up and he said, "Sir, you are the main reason why I have become what I have become." Right? And he says the whole thing that day you were not angry, you smiled at me. There was compassion and love in your eyes, which stirred my heart. And that is what has brought me where I am. And then the old man says, "Okay, let me tell you my side of the story." He says, "After that day, when I saw you in the prison, it broke my heart. I went home and I prayed before Swami's picture. I said, 'Swami, such a young life. Why has he done this to himself? This is not fair. He seems like a good boy, and why should we be in the prison? Why so much anger? Why so much disturbance in that young life?' And he tells Swami, 'This is not right, Swami. You have to do something. You have to transform that boy.' And he tells Swami in his prayer room, 'Swami, I know you will do this. You should transform that boy, and one day I will sit with him and sip a cup of coffee.' And the old man says, 'Today is that day.' So when you go out with that kind of purity, which Swami said, 'I want my students and my devotees to do work like I did.' He doesn't want work to be done for him, but done in place of him. Can we be that instrument which does not obstruct his grace? When we say being pure, that's all it means. To be there, but not be there. Right? To be there, but ensure that this I is not there. And that is why to participate in any way, in small ways in Swami's activities, is the greatest blessing. It's not that to be an instrument you have to be a doctor. To be an instrument you have to be someone like a speaker. There is a elderly gentleman in Prasanthi, I think quite recently he passed away. This man is actually a professor of physics, but he used to be in charge of the PA system in the mandir. Many of you might have seen him, even now if you see some old discourses. He is the elderly man, thin elderly person who comes and sets Swami's mic. Right? If you look at him, you might think that, okay, he's some technician or something, but he's actually a professor of physics, for whom that small work was the greatest work that he was doing. So this person used to be in charge of laying cables and putting mic for Swami and setting up the speakers and all that. So one day, I think some Dashara or some important festival like that, he had set up the mics, he had put things in place, and Swami gave a discourse. As always, everybody was thrilled. At the end of the discourse, Swami calls this man, and Swami says, "Be careful, set up things properly." Right? Be a little more careful, set up things properly. And Swami goes. And this man is thinking, why is Swami telling me like that? Everything went on well. There was no glitch. So he is not able to make sense of it. He says, "All right, we'll think about it later." And he starts winding up all the equipment. And that is when he realizes, when you have this kind of a mat midway, the cables actually run under it. So when he was rolling the mat, he realized that the mic that Swami was using was not connected to the amplifier at all. He had forgotten to plug the mic to the amplifier. And Swami has given the entire discourse. 20,000, 30,000 people have heard the discourse. They clapped at the end of it. And Swami comes and tells him, "Do things carefully." Imagine the thought that would have been in his mind. Swami doesn't need me. But even though that thought is there that Swami doesn't need me, the next day when he's setting up the mic, wouldn't he have been careful? Right? So that thought that Swami doesn't need me and the thought that I have to do things as sincerely as I can coexist and must coexist. So when I take up a work in Swami's name, I always say this, a lot of people come and ask, So do you prepare? Do you put notes? I think yesterday also someone came and asked me, do you write notes? There are any number of times when you speak, you know that the words are not yours. Right? The words come from Swami and you're just here. He has given the opportunity to just be here. Right? There's a beautiful episode which one of the seniors was once narrating. In those days, there used to be that elderly gentleman who used to play flute in Prasanthi Nilayam. 15 minutes before bhajans. I don't know how many of you know. So if 5:15 bhajan starts, at around 5 o'clock, this gentleman would play flute. So one day Swami was moving around the portico, standing in front and talking to some boys. And all of a sudden, the flute music started. And Swami was standing just next to the speaker like that. So suddenly when music comes from there, you get a little startled, right? So Swami was like little shaken like that. And then Swami asked, hey, where did that sound come from? Where did that sound come from? So the boys who were sitting in front of Swami, they said, Swami, the speaker. It came from the speaker. And then Swami said, the sound came from the speaker, but the source is inside. The person playing the flute was inside the bhajan hall. Swami said, the sound came from the speaker, but the source is inside. Anytime anyone stands and speaks, only the sound is coming from the speaker, the source is always there. Right? So even though as a person doing that role, if I come here and say, okay, this is what I am doing, I'm just merely an instrument. We often say this during our broadcasts in the radio. We say we have a mixer, we have a computer, we have a table, we have a chair, and we have us. We are also part of the equipment because the only speaker is him. So even though we have the idea that we are only instruments, we are only part of the equipment, so to say, it doesn't take away from the idea that when I come here in the role of a speaker, I have to do my duty diligently of preparing for it. So am I delivering a good talk because I prepared for it? No. But because I am able to deliver a talk, does that mean I will not prepare for it? No. This also has to be there, that also has to be there. When I do Swami's work, I should do it with a complete involvement, as though everything depends on me, with the awareness that nothing depends on me. And when we master this very, very tricky state of mind, we can slowly transfer it to every karma that we do. Right? When Krishna looks at Arjuna, he says, Mam anusmara yudhyacha. He says, Mam anusmara yudhyacha. Smarana means to think, right? Swami had told in on discourse, I don't want you all to do just namasmarana. Swami said, I want you to do anusmarana, which means every moment you should be thinking of the Lord. And he tells Arjuna, Mam anusmara yudhyacha, which means think of me every moment and fight. Yudhyacha means take part in the battle. 5 minutes if I sit and chant Swami's name, I become calm. Imagine if I am in a state of mind where I am able to think of Swami's name every second. What peace will be there in my mind? And Krishna is saying, with that state of peace, go and fight. Which means with this complete freedom, this idea that nothing depends on me, he is completely capable of taking care of my family. He is completely capable of taking care of all my duties. But all I have to do is to show up. All I have to do is to make myself available as an instrument. And do whatever it takes to be diligent in that process. But with the full awareness that he is the one who does. I am the one who after the talk is going to take all your appreciation. Right? It all truly belongs only to him, isn't it? Whatever work we do, the gratitude to that work belongs to him. And this is the greatest opportunity, because Karma Yoga is pinned on that one idea: doing God's work. It is all pinned in that idea. When you say Nimitta Karana, it means that to be able to do work as God's work. And by creating an organization, by creating institutions, it is very easy to convince this mind that this is God's work. It's very easy. When you're setting up the altar, it's so easy to think this is Swami's work, isn't it? It's a little more difficult to think of that when you're doing your laundry. Eventually we should get there. Eventually we should be able to come to that idea that even that is God's work. But now this is an easy way by which the mind can be trained. This is God's work. This is God's work. And slowly, like transplanting a sapling, right? After it has been grown in a controlled circumstance, you transplant it so that it grows to that full plant. This has to be transplanted to every activity that we do. It might be studies, it might be doing work in the kitchen, it might be doing work in the garden, it might be serving our children, serving our parents. That idea, Swami, I am just here. It is your love, it is your grace, it is your care that is reaching that person. I am incidental, I am instrumental. So with these thoughts, I most humbly offer this at Bhagwan's lotus feet.